Hello, neighbors. So there's been some confusion recently on how to compare other municipalities' budget to the budget that we've come up with and presented that you can find on our Facebook group. It's labeled NRDH Proposed Draft Budget V2, and it's a Excel spreadsheet. And if you look at that spreadsheet, you can click on a tab that is labeled comparisons, and it will bring up comparisons with a few other municipalities. Now, what this comparison has done is it looks at the level of services that this area would be looking to provide and compares it to what other municipalities that are around the same size and that contract services as we would, and compares the expenses that they pay for that type of service to the expenses that we would pay for that type of service. The problem with comparing other municipalities on a broad level is what you're doing is you're lumping in different types of funds, and you're lumping in services that this area wouldn't necessarily need or want, and you're trying to compare them to one another. This is problematic for a lot of reasons, and rather than try to explain it on a post or right now, I just wanted to make a condensed version of the video that was taken, the group meeting we had on August 29th, and just kind of let the experts explain it. I've taken a couple of clips and put them together for those of you who don't want to go through the entire thing. I know it's long, or those of you that were there but may not remember exactly what the experts were saying. I just want to remind you that these guys are not people who have just sat at a computer for a couple of hours and come up with this stuff. These are leading experts in their field. And with that, I'll let them do the talking.
There are two other mics up there. If somebody could grab them, this will be easier.
Thank you, and I think you're doing a great job of explaining it on layman's terms, and I just want to be clear. As far as financing it, you're saying that the sales tax would go up, and I'm trying to figure out on what businesses that are within the boundaries. Is that it? So if we look in New River, we would look at the businesses doing business. So if you buy gas at one gas station that happens to be in New River, you get a piece of that, but you don't get any of the sales tax of a gas station in Anthem or something like that, right? Am I clear with that?
Whatever's within, yes, whatever's within your incorporated boundaries. And there's more than just retail. There are other things. If you construct a home, there's sales tax on that. If there's an advertising business, so there are several categories of tax in there, but you are correct. They have to be within the incorporated boundary.
Right, and you were using the analogy of the last 12 or 13 incorporations. There was no property tax increase. Did I understand that?
That's correct.
And would it, but I'm thinking out of the box. I'm thinking in this particular case, with the lack of what I understand to be the sales tax, it seems to be likely that a property tax would be needed to fund an incorporation based upon hiring the fire department and all the contracts that we're currently getting. Does that make sense?
I know what you're asking, but it doesn't necessarily follow. Again, some of these places that we're talking about, not very large. Star Valley, for example, not very big, okay? Doesn't have a lot of retail, doesn't have a lot of sales tax locally, okay? But they do it without a property tax.
Thank you.
Now, am I saying that nobody will ever attempt, or that there won't be? I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it is possible. Yes.
Yes.
Excuse me, my name's Ed Taylor. I'd like to know if there is any city in Arizona
Where are you? I'm trying to, okay.
that is 15,000 people covering the same area that New River Desert Hills does, that actually functions with a $4 million budget.
Again, I think that you could go on the league's website and look at the populations and the amounts and look up budgets and things, but off the top of my head, I don't know how many incorporated miles you're going to have, what the map's going to be. So to answer that, all I know is the population estimates, but I cannot answer whether or not they are. I don't know, Tom, if you know of any.
The ones that I compared were $70 million a year for $15,000 or 15,000 population.
Again, what you have to compare is the service level. And what Pat was asked to prepare is for the amount of money that was received in shared revenue, how would you cover the required services? And that's what she was asked to provide, and that's what she provided. Now, a lot of the cities that you're talking about have been cities for decades, and they have increased their business inside their communities and those sort of things. So it's, again, it's, as she mentioned before, it's difficult to compare apples to apples in this situation, because they may have decided we have this revenue, or we're going to generate this amount of revenue, and so we're going to have these additional services. I think if you take and you compared road maintenance, public safety, and basic administration, you're going to see that those costs are very similar per capita. That's what she's trying to do. This is a bare bones budget. We're doing a lot of contracting and other things. It is impossible to take the town of Fountain Hills, which is one that she used, is about it's about 24,000, and they have a very low budget compared to other cities and towns because they've decided to contract instead of having more employees. So it's a very difficult thing for Pat to answer, to be able to compare one city because they have a population, you're going to have to spend that much money. No. She took what you have to do, what you're required to do when you incorporate, and she showed how you would use that revenue to pay for what you're required to do. If you decide to do more, you'll have to pay more. And you can start and look, if you go back, and we're happy to help you to find these things, you can go back and look at cities and towns that have incorporated, and look at their first year budgets, look at their second year budgets. Okay, obviously they're going to grow and change as the city and town grows and changes.
One more thing that I'll add is that you got to be very careful on what funds they have. As I mentioned, we only created 2 funds, general fund and one special revenue fund, which is highway user revenue fund. There's other funds that can be created, and internal service funds and capital funds, and they might have water and sewer. So you got to be very careful that you're not comparing apples to oranges. And that's the difficulty of it, is that you really got to look at, the population, what they provide, and then you almost have to go back in time to when they incorporated. So I tried to do the best I could based on some comparisons of like-sized communities that have all contracted services, and look at the cost on a general level for street maintenance per mile, as well as some of the line items within the admin, the personnel, benefits are included in there. If you have benefits, you may decide not to provide any benefits, then you have that money freed up for something else, but that's what the whole budget process is about.
You are already paying state sales tax. You are already paying vehicle license tax. You are already paying HERF. That money is coming out of your pocket anyway. It's already being paid to the state. What state shared revenue means is that you're getting a share of what's already coming out of your pocket to come to the city. What Pat is talking about is not new money. It's money that already exists, and you get a share of it when you become a city or town.